Tanya. Hello. Thank you, Tanya. I'm excited here, so hopefully everybody is ready to go. Today we're going to talk about securing your network against advanced threats, a very popular topic, but we're going to boil it down and tell you what is the unique story that we have to share with you today. So what we'd like to do is go ahead and talk about the agenda. We're going to do a quick executive summary since these slides are going to be available post the WebEx. You can go back there and check it out. We're going to talk about the ForeScout and FireEye solution, and we're talking about a true integrated solution. Give you a little bit of confidence booster that we're well recognized and been able to accomplish this. Just one slide on how we stack up to the competition, and then, real importantly, is to where can you look for the next opportunity? Where can you go? And then what are the tools and everything you have in order to get started? So it's going to be an exciting session here today, so let's get going. Now, here's the executive summary. This is a slide I'd like for you to default back to post-presentation if you just want a single snapshot. The customers are all of our enterprise customers. The market is, of course, selling the technology that comes from ForeScout and FireEye. The issue, which you're going to hear so loud and clear about, is it's about security silos. And the partnership between FireEye and ForeScout is about breaking down the security silos and having your customers reap the benefits of that. So they have a lot more faster response to attacks. And then we're going to go through the solution. What's really interesting is that we're going to show you step by step how the solution actually works together. So you're not going to see that this is some fluff relationship. You're going to see how it's integral as far as the actual workflow process to actually do it. And then, of course, the whole entire solution suite between the ForeScout offering and then the FireEye offering there. If you have any questions, just feel free to chat. Before we get started, I want you to raise your hand if you sell FireEye today. Okay, so raise your hand. I'm serious. Go ahead and raise it because not everybody's raising their hand. So raise your hand loud. Higher. Okay, so if you look around, a lot of you already sell the FireEye solution, right? Now, the second question I have is, how many of you already have customers with FireEye solution already installed or looking at it? Okay, raise your hand. Higher, because I know there's a lot of you. They have over 4,000 customers, so I know you have a few, okay? So for those of you, keep this in mind as you're going through, because especially if you already have a FireEye customer, they're going to be really thrilled about what they have here to say. Okay, so let's talk about this adversary, aka the bad guy. It's not a who, it's a who, it's not a what, right? Before it used to be fun to go around and just kind of hack people and do denial of service attacks and everything. But there's a human here. They're actually on a mission. They're professional, organized, and well-funded. In many cases, they're better organized and well-funded than we are. And that's what we need to talk about, is how can we be more organized so we can actually maximize the investments your customers are making so we can level the playing field. And then the third part is, guess what? You can kick them out, but they're going to keep coming back. So how do you contain these folks? How do you get in front of them? And that's the game that we're up against right now. So let's talk about, in a different point of view here, let's talk about how we're making it easy on the bad guy, all right? This is how we're making it easy, is we have a very fragmented state of IT security. We have all these silos, right? We say, buy our solution and put it here and put it in my silo, okay? And then what we do is we say, okay, in order to manage that particular silo, put a human being on it, okay? Put more head count on it, throw head count at the problem, do all that. And then we also say, and then let's just put more money into it, all right? We still haven't solved the problem here. We're still operating in silos. And a very good analogy is we call it swivel chair management. So if you're sitting in your swivel chair right now, assume a lot of you are in your swivel chair, and then, so act like you're ATD. And if you swing to the left, that means you're going to go over and manage your SIM. If you swing to the right, that means you're going to go over and manage your vulnerability assessment. So what you're doing swivel chair. You're just swiveling chair back and forth. So we want to eliminate that swivel chair management because the bad guys love the fact that we do that. Okay, so we'll talk more about that. But we're making it easy on them, very, very easy. And they think we're funny because we throw more people at it and we put more money on it. And they know we have a higher chance of winning whack-a-mole than we do managing it this way. Now, here's the financial impact of it. $3.5 million average cost of breach. This comes from the Mandiant side of the house over at FireEye. So while they're laughing at us doing the swivel chair management, they're in there and they're snooping around for an average of 205 days. They're having a field day, right? Once we know it's there, then, we're going to run across them back and forth between all our silos and take us 30 days to respond to it. So it's not very effective at all, and it's very, very costly. So we want to fix that, right? We don't want to throw money at the problem. We want to get in front of this. Now, here's something that a lot of people are not really, I don't think they're really fully digesting the impact of that. The onslaught of managed devices. Unmanaged devices are not devices that just don't have the agent on it yet. Unmanaged devices are devices that will never be able to have an agent on it, okay? So right now, by 2020, which is only 4 years away, folks, 20+ billion unmanaged connected devices. When I see that number, I think of that as being 20+ billion doorways into our corporate networks. 20+ billion. According to Gartner, 1.5 million devices are being added to networks every single day. 1.5, right? So that's a lot of doors. Now, right now, less than 10% of these devices, okay, will be manageable through traditional methods. And what we're speaking of here is I will not have the opportunity to slap an agent on it, okay? So agents are good when you can use them. But when you can't use them, you have to find a non-traditional method, and that's what we're going to speak about here. Now, this is a recent stat from IDC. 2/3 of enterprises, they predict, will experience an IoT security breach. The premise of that is IoT is unmanaged devices. You're not going to put an agent on it. And IoT is an unlocked back door into every single network, right? So I'm not trying to present a doomsday here, because if I don't have a solution to the problem, I'm not going to talk about the problem, but we need to truly understand what the problem is. And here's another interesting fact. I'm out there and I'm talking to people, and I was talking to some industry analysts who want to talk to some of our clients. And I said, sure, we'll line up a customer to speak to you. And they said, yes. They said, but Jennifer, can you make sure that they have IoT devices on their network? And hopefully a couple of you are laughing in the room here with me, where it's like, well, yeah, all of them do. Whether we realize it or not, I'd be willing to place a bet that any customer you go into has IoT devices on their network. Look around their video surveillance, the HVAC, their monitors, right? Their printers. Those are Internet of Things devices that don't have security agents on them. So even industry analysts and select groups are not aware of the prevalence of how it's out there today. We have a responsibility to make sure our customers know about this, okay? Now, how do we win this war, right? Well, we talked about how smart the adversaries are. Well, we need to be smart. In fact, we need to be smarter, and that's knowledge. And that's just knowledge not just from one company, but from a combination of companies. So as we look at what FireEye and ForeScout can have in the knowledge, I'm going to share with you now with the combination of the knowledge that we can do and how we can help your clients. So those of you familiar with ForeScout, hopefully this is not a new slide for you. It's our ability to see. See is different than visibility, okay? Let me explain to you why. When we talk about see, we're talking about, first of all, seeing all your managed devices, okay? So those are devices that have agents on it. And you're probably thinking, okay, well, most people can do that, because if I have an agent on it, I can see it. And I'll give you that, okay? That's fair enough. Now, let's look about, if you saw that orange, did everybody see that really cool color pop up, right? And then you see antivirus, vulnerability, broken agent. What if the agent's not fully functioning correctly? If it's not functioning correctly, then you're not secure. And we have the ability to see what's not functioning correctly. In fact, we did a survey with Frost & Sullivan, and we asked folks, around Germany, UK, and United States, what is your confidence level that all of your endpoint security is functioning well? What's your confidence level? The highest confidence level was 70%. So would you like to go into your CISO, or if you're a CISO, go into your management and say, guess what? I have a 70% confidence rate that our endpoints are securely protected. Okay? Well, I don't think any of us would do that. And so what we'll do is we'll give you the visibility to make sure that they're actually functioning correctly and then help you fix it. Now, that's the managed space. Okay? Now, just to let you know, let's talk about unmanaged. Now, I want to kind of clear up some confusion here. Some vendors, and I'm not saying this is right or wrong, they say that they can manage unmanaged devices. And what they mean when they say they can manage unmanaged devices is they can manage them as long as they put the agent on them. Okay? So that's how some vendors say it. So yeah, we can help with unmanaged devices, just slap our agent on them and then we can manage them. I'm not talking about that here. When I'm speaking about unmanaged devices, we're talking about devices that can't carry an agent, right? They're hardened for another reason. Can you imagine going around slapping, working with GE Medical and saying, hey, I want to put all my agents on your heart monitors and your IV systems? That's not going to happen. None of us are going to want to contend with the FDA. So unmanaged and IoT devices are devices that will never have an agent on them in this context that I'm sharing with you as well, right? So what's happening now is what's visible in traditional systems is the stuff in light blue, right? That means you have an agent on it and it's functioning correctly. What's invisible and what hackers love to exploit is when they're not kept up to date and when it's unmanaged or IoT. With ForeScout, we see all that. So now you've got complete coverage of all the back doors into your network, every single doorway. Now, let's talk about FireEye for just a moment. Now, I'm not going to profess to be an expert at FireEye. I had the privilege or honor of competing against them once before, and I can attest to how great their system is about detecting and preventing threats. They are able to look and analyze 2 million objects per hour. It's phenomenal what they're able to do. And I love the words detonate, right? They're able to detonate it, and then they're able to correlate it back, all right? So as far as this, detecting malware, threats, IOCs, which are indicators of compromise, I think we all know that FireEye is best in class when it comes to that. Now, something else that I don't want you to forget about FireEye when it comes to intelligence is not just being able to identify these threats and these indicators of compromise, but they have one stellar threat intelligence system. If you think about it, 4,000 customers, right? 10 million plus virtual machines, 5 million endpoints. That is a tremendous feed into finding out what's going on in that world. And they're pulling all that information. Just think about Homeland Security. The reason we got Homeland Security in the United States is they're going to pull information from the Navy, the DOD is part of Navy's part of DOD, the NSA, and they're pulling all this information or data to give us powerful information. That's exactly what FireEye does with their threat intelligence, and they're pulling that in on a constant basis. Talk about knowledge. Once again, that knowledge is power. So now we're in the position with the combined solution of being able to see, all the devices as soon as they connect to the network, whether they're managed, unmanaged, whatever the case may be. Those are all your doors into your network. Then we're able to detect all the threats by rolling in the FireEye solution. And then we have this tremendous power and knowledge of the dynamic threat intelligence, right? So I think we've leveled the playing field with the bad guys at this point. So what do we do with all this knowledge? Knowledge is not any good until you can control it, right? So let's go to control. Now, this is one simple slide. And I think we need to keep it simple because we don't need to be scared when we talk about control, right? Control can be just simply notifying. Control can be simply limit. And control can be really blocking, right? And it's policy-driven and automated. Now, let me give you real-life examples just so you know it's not as intimidating. So when I travel, there's a policy around people like me when I travel. I travel alone a lot. I go to a lot of countries outside the United States. I am blonde, and I've traveled to some unusual companies or countries, right? That may be questionable as part of business. So guess what? There's a policy that says when there's a profile like that, guess what? I need to be quarantined when I come into the United States. The reason I need to be quarantined is because I kind of fit the profile of a drug dealer, believe it or not, okay? I didn't know that, okay? I found out the hard way because I kept asking why I got pulled over. But there's a policy. So there's a policy that says, hey, if this acts this way, then what we need to do is we need to take them over to the side, we quarantine them, and it takes a few minutes, but I've got it kind of down to a science now, and I finally got my global entry, which helps me a lot more now. And quarantine me, see if I'm good or not, and let me in. And it just takes a few minutes. Well, that's the kind of same thing with when devices enter your network, right? They may hit a particular profile. They may be innocent or maybe they're not. And then you can quarantine them. Or if they really are a culprit, then you can literally block them and, not let them kind of, go through your network and everything like that. But it's okay to be automated in today's world because we'd much rather take a few minutes, pull ourselves aside, and make sure that we're safe than to let somebody through. That wasn't the case a year ago, right, or 2 years ago. Now that companies are making the headlines, guess what? The CEO is willing to take an extra minute to make sure that IT makes sure that they're safe. Before, a CEO would throw a fit if you had to delay them slightly. Now they get it. So we're really seeing a good adoption of policy-driven and automated control. And this is what this is all about. So you've got all this wonderful knowledge, and now you're going to use this knowledge to actually help control and protect their network. Now, here's the thing about it. Remember we were talking about the swivel chair thing going back and forth, back and forth? Well, this is where orchestrate comes in. Orchestrate is to eliminate the swivel chair movement that we have going throughout IT, because we take all this knowledge, we take the control, and we automate that workflow in this situation across FireEye and ForeScout. We don't require human intervention, and that saves us from the swivel chair. So when you get that tons of information at FireEye, and they give you a wealth of information, and they show you maybe 100 types of indicators, guess what? You don't have to go through all those 100 indicators by yourself. You can feed it as part of this integration, and then we can actually respond upon it. And that's what this is all about. So in order to drive this, make it realistic, I'm going to go through 2 use cases. But before we go into the use cases, I'm just going to ask, does anybody have any questions? And use the chat down there if you have any questions. Don't raise your hand. Put your hand down. But if you have any questions, just hit the chat thing, because you may not believe this or not, but when you raise your hands, I really can't see you. So put your hands down and hit the chat if you have a question. Okay, no questions, right? All right, so let's talk about how this works. All right, now there's two scenarios. We're going to go around advanced detection and incident response. And then we're going to go around the actual endpoint compliance. And I did just see a question pop up. They said, are you going to do a technical demo? And what I'm going to do here first is I'm going to show you the conceptual demo, right? Like how does, let's make sure we all understand the workflow process. What we have for a technical demo is we've actually recorded that for you. So we're going to be able to send that out after today's recording and actually show you the technical demo, which is the interface into the systems and things of that nature. So for that particular question, yes, we'll show you. But let's first understand the use case so we understand the technical component. Okay, 2 thumbs up there. All right, so what we have is we have a scenario to look at step 1 is we have NX or EX discovers a 0-day threat and tells ForeScout or HX. Now, I just did a whole lot of X's here for you, okay? If it has an X in a name, guess what? It's the FireEye product to make it easy on us. But NX or EX says, oh my gosh, I see a threat, I see a 0-day threat. I'm going to tell ForeScout and or I'm going to tell HX, okay? HX is the endpoint software from FireEye, okay? Now, if it goes to an HX managed device, as you see down there at the bottom, and it lights up, HX will find the device with IOC and stops the malware. And then it, because it's all integrated, it'll go back and tell, hey, ForeScout, guess what? These were the devices impacted, and we need to contain these devices because they've been infected with a threat. And ForeScout says, great. Now, if you have endpoints that don't have the HX agent on them, like we have with a BYOD device, for instance, we still go out that device, and we see that it has the malware, and we automatically contain that right there. Okay? And then what we do is we limit access of those networks to the network, right? Those two devices. So whether it's a FireEye managed device with HX or whether it's a non-managed device like BYOD, we're able to take that wonderful information from FireEye that there's been a threat, use that information, and then contain those devices, so we kind of shut the door from that standpoint. Okay? Now, let's look at, once the malware proliferation is stopped, let's go to step 5. Now, ForeScout feeds this contextual information of devices comprised to TAP. Now, TAP is FireEye's threat analytics platform, okay? And what it's able to do is so that it can start looking at the risk assessment and things of that nature, all right? Now, once the analytics are run, they say, okay, this device is now declared clean. Okay, then ForeScout goes back out, and as you see, the red has popped off the HX managed devices and off the BYOD devices, and they're allowed in. Okay, now, it took me a few minutes to walk through that. Can you, just for a minute, step back and say, wow, if I was a person, well, you are a person, but as a person in IT, if you had to walk through all those things, that would take you a very long time, right? Because of the integration between the two companies' offerings, this happens all real time. It's done. It's automated. It's happening. And you get the report out that it's done. Imagine going in and talking to an existing FireEye customer and saying, wow, wouldn't this be really cool for you to allow these control implementations? And all you have to have is a counteract with the extended module. We used to call them plugins. We call them extended modules now. But just have that. Imagine that. Okay? So that's the advanced detection and incident response. All right? It's really cool there. Now, let's go to the second use case about endpoint protection, endpoint compliance, right? This is where we want to make sure, remember I showed you in the chart where we talk about C, where you say, yeah, I can see all my managed devices, but what if they're not in compliance? What if they don't have the latest version? Well, this is what we're going to talk about here. So let's go to step 1. So ForeScout discovers the instance, a device connects to the network, whether it's managed or unmanaged. And you can see the ones below, BYOD devices, the mobile devices, the managed devices, and the IoT devices, okay? Now, in the case of a managed endpoint, okay, so let's go down to managed endpoint. And what we mean by managed endpoint is when it actually has the XH agent installed on it and fully functional and up to date. So ForeScout checks to make sure with the HX server that the agent is communicating correctly. And if it's not, if there's any problems, we just trigger a restart or reinstall to make sure that everything has the actual, complete HX agent on it. Because if you do have the complete HX agent on it, you're going to be pretty well protected. And we want to make sure that happens. Now let's go to the second scenario, which is BYOD. Here, ForeScout goes out, goes to the BYOD devices you see on the left-hand side. And once again, we say, oh, are these aligned with corporate policy? And if they are, then fine, we let them on the network. If not, it's blocked or assigned to a guest network. And then that information is provided back up to you by ForeScout. Okay? Now let's go down to the mobile devices. Here's another acronym that you see there, MTP. That's the mobile threat prevention platform from FireEye, okay? So what ForeScout validates is the MTP agent, if it's installed or not. That comes from FireEye. And if it's not installed, we'll install it. If it needs to be up to date, we'll do that too. Then the MTP scans all applications for malware. And if it finds a piece of malware, MTP sends a quick message over to ForeScout and says, hey, guess what, ForeScout? this has malware in it. Can you rather limit or block it or quarantine it, whatever the policy says, and then ForeScout does that. And then finally, we're down to the fourth category of endpoints, which is the IoT devices. What I talked about here is that these do not have agents on them. So ForeScout is able to classify an IoT device the moment it connects to the network and assigns them to whatever network it should be, right? Whatever the policy is for that customer. And then it monitors the device traffic, and if it sees any abnormal behavior, then it can actually put in some controls. So say, for instance, a printer is an IoT device. Now, we feed information to a printer. What if we saw a printer all of a sudden start going away from it and start, information coming from the printer and start going over our network? We would know that that's unusual behavior. We would stop the printer because more than likely it was infected. So this particular case scenario is all about the endpoint compliance, making sure whether I have BYOD devices, whether I have mobile devices with the FireEye agent on it, whether I have managed devices with the FireEye agent on it, and IoT devices, no matter what the portfolio is. The FireEye and ForeScout together can make sure that you're aware of all of them and you're in compliance. What an amazing thing it would be for someone to say, hey, are you aware of all the devices you have on your network during your next audit? And then be able to report out if they're actually in compliance or not. Now, why this works, I can talk to you about the technology and we can show you the great, like I say, more of the technical demo, but we broke down the silo. That's really what it's about here. We broke down the silo. We took what FireEye is really good with, we took what ForeScout's really good with, and we made it work together with what we call an extended module. Okay, that's all it took. We're not going to ask a customer to go ahead and reconfigure their whole entire network. We're not going to ask the customer to please deploy our fascinating, life-saving architecture. We're just going to ask the customer to say, you have your FireEye and or your ForeScout, buy this one extended module, and then it will work together. No re-architecture required. And I think that from if I was sitting in your shoes, the last thing I want to do is say, yeah, I've got the solution to the problem. I can really help you. I can eliminate swivel chair management, but you have to re-architect your whole entire network. All right? You're going to get kicked out, aren't you? Right? I see a lot of heads nodding up and down. Yeah, you're going to get kicked out. But we're just talking about an integration module here called extended module for FireEye. Okay? Now, this is the commercial break, but you got to bear with me on these two things. All right? ForeScout, I love this quote from Michael DeCesar. He wants to become the most channel-friendly security company on the block. And by meeting with you here today and providing you the content you need to help deploy the solution, this is just one of the, one of the many indicators that we're serious about that. You may not know this, but 2,000 plus customers around the world, 500 plus employees. When I joined 7 months ago, it was 325. So, that means growth company. 150 plus partners. I think 150 is a really good number. It's not that we want to partner with everyone. We want to partner with you. 62 countries, 70 plus integrations. We work with 70 plus different products out there. We've talked about FireEye today, but it doesn't stop there. FireEye, they're a great company. I know you've heard a little bit about them in the press recently. Wall Street always likes to have a field day, but right now Wall Street's having a field day on everyone. But we are aware of the recognition that FireEye has out there as being an extremely innovative company and also a company that wants to break down the security silos. You probably saw the announcement they had earlier this week about that. So once again, a highly reputable company that stands behind what they do with a world-class organization with Mandiant behind them. So, you know what? This is a competition slide. And if I didn't have ForeScout Counteract to have almost all the circles 100% complete, then it wouldn't be a ForeScout slide, okay? But I think the important thing here to think about is that when you look at what's really needed in these environments around see, control, orchestrate, and manage, this is where we excel. And I will give credit to our competitors that they excel. It's just not in the areas of see, control, and orchestrate. Okay? So I could build this out for other things that are a little bit more ancillary to this and give them a lot of circles that are 100% filled in. So they do have a lot of circles that can be filled in, just not applicable to what we're trying to achieve here today around see, control, and orchestrate. Okay? And that's what we're focused on here as well. I'm sure if they said, well, how does ForeScout compare to being a network switch, we'd probably get an empty circle, and I'm cool with that. We get full circles where we're really, really focused. Now, hopefully you're pumped. Hopefully you're like, okay, this is real. This is not some fluffy relationship. I can solve a real problem. I can go and talk to my customers about this. I don't have to re-architect their network. I can actually do this. I can bring this to my customers. So here's how you know if customers are looking for this type of solution, right? Do they really want to know real time what devices are connecting to their network? Now, if they're going through an audit or upcoming audit, the question is going to be yes, they want to know. Now, here's the interesting thing. Most people think they know. And for those of you that have already sold ForeScout, you know as well as I do. I call it the big IoT surprise. There's a lot more devices on their network than what they realized. So you need to play that card. Make sure they know. Now, here's the other thing. Not only do they want real-time visibility into the devices, but users and applications and operating systems on their network. Absolutely. What is going on? Can you imagine how proud someone would be to rather go into the CISO or the CISO going to the president of the company, CEO, and being able to report all this out? You know, talk about career-changing move. It goes from a career-limiting move because there's a threat to a career-changing move because you can disclose this information. And then are they frustrated because, you know, their products are in silos, right? Silos, silos, silos. I can't imagine you walking into one customer that doesn't have security silos. And they're looking for, I think they're looking through a single point of integration. They're just afraid that that single point of integration means re-architecting their whole entire network. And we're not saying that. Popular things, reduce attack surface. Do you know what we mean by reduce attack surface? The reducing of attack surface is saying, I know that there are 5,000 doorways into my network, and I'm going to secure those 5,000 doorways so I can focus on other things. But if you don't know about those other devices, then you're not reducing your attack surface. So this knowledge gives customers the ability to reduce their attack surface because they know about all the doors into their network, because they know about all the devices connected to their network. And then they can reduce that attack surface by knowing about them and controlling them. That way they can focus their efforts on other areas that may be vulnerable to attacks. And then, of course, you know, identify advanced threats and indicators of compromise right away. And like I said, this may not have been the way maybe 2-3 years ago, but to automate threat response. They realize that it's okay to now automate threat response, so we can automatically respond. And it may just be a matter of quarantining, not throwing somebody off the network. But that quarantine gives us enough time to actually figure out if it's a good guy or a bad guy. And companies are a lot more open to this. You know, is it a choice? Do I want to be automated or do I want my company in the headlines? Guess what? Automation looks pretty darn good at this point. So we see a lot of our customers actually deploying that. Now, questions to ask, right? State of the business. What's going on? Current security partners. Like I said, we have 70+ integrations. More than likely, they do have a FireEye, but if they don't, they're going to have something else. Number of employees helps them figure out how many endpoints they think they have. Understanding their security budget. But really, when you get down to it, how do they currently know what type of employee-owned devices are on your network? The bring your own device syndrome, right? How do you identify unmanaged devices? Right? That's a really good question. How do you identify unmanaged devices? If you don't know they're there, how do you find them? Do your current security products have real-time information about users and device compliance? Audit, audit, audit. Think about it. Everybody gets audited. How do you protect against zero-day attacks that do evade traditional security systems? Traditional security systems still need to be in place, but don't count on them to solve the more modern day threats. And then how do you quarantine infected endpoints and automate other risk mitigation actions? And if they say I sit in my swivel chair and I go back and forth, then you know they're a prime candidate. Now, here's some things that we have in place to help you out. We have this training presentation. We have a customer email that you can send out. We have a customer email call script you can use. We have a scripted customer presentation for you. We have case studies. We have 2 case studies already, State of Missouri and Queens College, that talks about this integrated solution. We also have the use case demonstration that I mentioned earlier for the 2 use cases where we actually go into the interface of the products. Once again, to prove that it's true, it actually does work. We are going to have a data sheet on each integration that we have with FireEye. We have a solution brief that talks about all the integrations into one single solution. Okay? If we're missing something, let your channel account manager know, speak up. We're here to support you on your effort to make this as easy as possible. Now, getting started. Step one, understand the opportunity. So, raise your hand if you have FireEye customers. If you have a FireEye customer, guess what? You got a great opportunity to go in and ask them about taking their FireEye solution to the next step, which is to control and then orchestrate the automated response. New customers, everybody's looking for this, and upsell opportunities. Next, contact the ForeScout account manager, which we call CAMs, right, to develop a joint business plan. We're behind them. There's many of us here. You can't see us, but we see you. We're here, and we're behind our channel account managers to help them every step of the way. And then drive demand. We have these great channel demand generation tools. We're going to come out with a few others just to kind of give you a little bit of teaser that we didn't share with you today. But we're going to help you generate your own demand as well. Make it easy for you. And then register your opportunities. Deal registration is always a really killer thing. And I know I speak with Tanya and the rest of the team here. Register your opportunities. We'll help you from that standpoint. So at this point, Tanya, I think I've done more than enough talking for today. So I'm going to turn this over to you and see if you have any comments or any questions from our audience today.
Yeah, we sure do. Jennifer, thanks so much. So we have a few questions that have come up today. First, Jennifer, can you talk about how other companies need to see all devices on the network and scan those devices? What makes us different? What makes this different?
Okay. So here's an interesting thing. We hear the word visibility used a lot. And as you notice, I use the word see and not visibility. So many of those companies are out there saying, I have visibility into your network. I think a nice way of saying that is I have visibility into all the devices on the network as long as you have my agent running on them. Okay? I think you need to have that as long as my agent is running on them. Okay? And not saying that's a bad thing, but that's the context in which it's in. And so that's okay. But if the agent is missing or not functional, right, or if you can't even put an agent on a device, that's where you see the differentiation with ForeScout. So if you have devices with agents on it, which is what people are saying when they can see all devices on the network, we're cool with that. We'll work with them. But it goes beyond. It goes beyond if it's running properly, if the agent's functional. In many cases, what we're finding is I talked about the proliferation of devices and the majority of them being the Internet of Things. You're not going to slap an agent on your printer. You're not going to slap an agent on your manufacturing line. You're not going to slap an agent on the IV system. Okay? We're not slapping agents on video surveillance. And that's where we come into play. So I think that would be the biggest differentiation that you'll find is we say the word see because we see the devices soon they're connected to the network. They have visibility. Their visibility is not 100% visibility. It's visibility as long as you have their agent running on the endpoint.
Thanks, Jennifer. Here's another one. You mentioned today 70+ integrations. So how do you decide on which partners and the functions you choose to integrate with, like why FireEye?
Okay, well that's a good question. So first of all, there are several ways we evaluate the partners in the integrations. I mean, with FireEye, the strategic relationship was initiated because of the products and services that they have. We realized that the integration with their products not only solves real-world problems, but by joining forces with them, we're looking at best-of-breed solutions that would have a huge impact on the security posture, right? So that's what we're looking at, is how can we make the biggest impact to the clients that you're actually selling into? Now, as far as how we choose partners, it's really a business decision. You know, does it solve a real-world problem? We're not in the business of doing these extended modules or basically integrations for the fun of it. We're in it because it solves a real customer problem. We look at their portfolio of products. We look at their market share. We look at, are they interested in breaking down silos? If they're not behind the business proposition of breaking down silos, then even though they may have cool technology, they've got to have to be behind that mission. So we look at that as well. But as far as we're concerned here at ForeScout, we'll work with any vendor. We don't feel like we're competitive because we know what our unique offering is, and we'll work with anyone that makes sense for the customer.
I have a question that may be more oriented towards FireEye. Hopefully, you can help give some guidance here. How do you identify false positives when a supposed threat is detected?
Okay, you're right. This is more of a FireEye question, and if there's anyone from FireEye on the line, feel free to step in here and chat up and correct me if I'm wrong here. But basically, here's my take. When an IOC is detected or any other threat, we just don't block it and say it's an issue, okay? The information gathered about the threat and then the activity an endpoint is generating is gathered, analyzed, and then the threat is given a score, okay? How serious is this? So high scores are significantly security threats that need to be dealt with immediately, and they're typically, you know, isolated, thrown off to the side, and, you know, the automated remediation, you know, is started. Lower scores are less likely to be a big issue, and instead of isolation and remediation, we may inform the help desk of the issue. We may send an email to the endpoint user with instructions on how to resolve the issue, or we may redirect them to a website that will assist them with the remediation. So that's actually how we do it. And like I said, I'd be more than happy to entertain any comments from a FireEye expert as well.
I just have a couple more questions here. So early in the presentation, you mentioned just a significant number of objects that FireEye analyzes, I think around 2 million objects per hour. How do they do that and not impact performance?
Okay. Once again, more of a FireEye thing, but this is actually a question I had of them as well because, wow, 2 million objects per hour, guys, that is massive and that is fast. So they have, so the FireEye is called Multi-Vector Virtual Execution Environment, MVX, okay, mouthful, is what they use on their core platform. That's their foundation, okay? And it's built from the ground up to identify attacks, to identify the exploits, okay? It doesn't use signatures. We're very familiar with signatures in this world. They don't use signatures, so they don't have to know what an attack or exploit looks like in order to be effective. It does look at the exploits, though. So it's just not analyzing if this is an executable. It's actually looking for the exploit that pauses or tries to evade the detection and executing this very well. So I think it's all about, you know, FireEye is committed to doing this well, and they built it from the ground up, and they knew they had to scale, and that was taken in consideration from the beginning, as opposed to somebody doing bolt-on security that, say, it looks a pretty good idea, but then it becomes a big performance hit.
And our last question, Jennifer, can an administrator manually upload an IOC ForeScout?
Okay. Yes, they can. An administrator can manually enter an IOC within the Counteract console. Once it's loaded, it can be used with all the IOC scanner policy conditions and actions to automate scanning. Manual's fine, but as you see, we're all about automation because we want to make the life easier on the IT person. But if there's a desire to do it manually, they have that option as well, Tanya.
Great. Thanks so much, Jennifer, and thanks all for joining us today. If you could give us 24 hours to make this recording available. available, as well as some of our additional assets. We'll get the information out to you. Thanks again, and we're here to help answer any additional questions you have, so please feel free to reach out to your channel account manager directly. Thank you.